Memorial Day is a time of honor and of remembering and paying tribute to those who have made it possible for us to be here. And so I'd like us to begin this message by honoring those who have served as veterans, those who are currently serving or those who have served in commitment to this country that you love so much. So if you are a veteran or if you are currently serving, will you please stand, because we want to honor you. No amount of applause or no particular words could let you know the depth of our appreciation. And we're also here on Memorial Day to honor those who gave their lives in service to this country. I know that Memorial Day is a bittersweet time for some of you whose loved ones gave their life in service to this country. So if you have a family member or a loved one who has lost their life out of their commitment to this country, would you please stand, because we would like to say thank you. Please stand. Memorial Day began as a time to honor those who had given their lives in the service, and as tradition has moved along over the years, it's come to be a time of remembering all those who have influenced, inspired, and supported us in becoming who we are today. I mean, think of the people that have touched your life. Where would you be without them? Where would you be without the family, the friends, the bosses, the teachers, the neighbors who have made you who you are? You are their legacy. You are their legacy. The word legacy means that which extends beyond our lifetime. It is the footprint or the fingerprint that we leave upon the soul of this world. And you are the legacy of all those who have made a difference for you. So I want to speak today about legacy, about not just those who've come before leaving you as a legacy, but we'll also talk about the legacy that you are leaving upon this world. So to begin with, I would like to tell you about a particular man. His name is Bob Keeler. Bob served in the Second World War. Bob was first lieutenant in the Army. He served in the 87th Armored Field Artillery Battalion. Bob Keeler landed on Omaha Beach D-Day +1. He went across France and helped to liberate Paris. He served in the Battle of the Bulge, and he helped to liberate a concentration camp in Germany. And his role was to serve as a forward observer. And a forward observer you might think of as a scout. It's the one who goes ahead into enemy territory and radios back to let your comrades know what's happening. And so Bob had done just that. He was 26 miles into enemy territory when he was shot. And the shell exploded underneath him, blowing off one of his legs. So there he was, 26 miles away from his comrades, and he radioed them to tell them what had happened. And they said they would get there as soon as they could, but you can imagine in the heat of battle and such a distance away, it took over 24 hours for them to be able to come to find him, to rescue him. And in that time, his other leg had become gangrenous, and so it too had to be amputated. But here's the thing, during that 24 hours, Bob Keeler continued to radio information. He continued to call battle and radio information back to his fellow servicemen. And so when I think about his legacy, I think about those servicemen who might not have lived had he not continued in service in whatever pain he was in. You know, those servicemen who may never know his name have children who are probably my age today. Those servicemen have grandchildren who are probably my daughter's age today, great-grandchildren who are the age of those kids in our Sunday school who will come in at the end of the service today and we'll bless them. And those family members won't know Bob. Maybe the servicemen did. Most likely they did, but maybe some didn't. Legacy is like that. You see, it goes on past our life in ways that we never know. One action, one word, one step, and that's our legacy. It continues on and on. Bob went on to create quite a legacy for himself because even though he'd completely lost one leg and one leg at the knee, he was one of only 4 other double amputees who learned to walk. And he learned to walk so well that the people in his hometown where he went to live didn't know that he had artificial legs. In fact, when he was 88 and finally had to give in to a wheelchair, one day he was wheeled into the restaurant that he would go every morning for breakfast, and the waitress said, "So Bob, what's up? Did you have an accident or something?" He said, "Well, yeah, a while back." As his daughter speaks of him, she tells about how it is that when she would face significant life challenges, she would stare them down and say, "I can get through this. It doesn't begin to compare to what my daddy did." You see how it is with legacy? It goes on and on and on. So we're talking about legacy today. And often when we talk about legacy, people think, well, my legacy, that's my children or my grandchildren, and I don't have any children or grandchildren. But let me invite you to consider it differently. Let me invite you to know that you have a lot of children. Do you realize that every child here at this spiritual community is part of your legacy? Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I think of legacy, I think of this spiritual community, and I think of kids like, I think of Autumn, who's a high school senior, and she's one of our junior prayer chaplains, and as she graduates, she's going to be enlisting to serve this country. And I think of Dominic, who's another one of our junior prayer chaplains, and just recently one of his Sunday school classmates says, he prays so great, he prays just like a minister. I think of the kids at the YMCA in South Johnson County who this summer are going to have fresh produce because of our Unity Garden. They may never know who the church is. They may, years down the road though, they will think back to the summer that they had fresh produce, that someone helped out their families. You might call these kids disadvantaged, but this summer they're going to have fresh food. That's part of your legacy as a part of this community. And you say, well, but Patricia, these are things the church does. Well, hello? Who is the church? Yeah, you're the church. Today we're going to be saying thank you to Deb Hill-Davis and to Pat Venema, who've been interning with us for the past couple of months. Do you know that of the 16 new ministers about to graduate, that 7 of them have either interned here or grown up here or worked here on staff? You see, part of understanding this notion of legacy is getting it that we are interconnected with everyone, that there is a oneness in this universe and we are all interconnected. I'm going to invite you for a moment, if you will, to sort of climb up with me to the 1,000-foot view. Look down. Imagine that you are looking down upon this country. You're in space, and you're able to look down upon this country, and you see right at the center of the country this little light for Unity Church of Overland Park. Now imagine with me that there is a beam of light that's extending to Asheville, North Carolina, where Pat's going to go minister, or extending to Ames, Iowa, where Deb's going to go minister. Or imagine the beam of light that goes all the way out to the Northwest, where Reverend Mary Omwake, who used to serve here, has just joined a church, Linwood, Washington. Or imagine the beam of light that goes to Unity Village, where Robert Brummett has been teaching for 20 years and teaching ministers who are out in the field. Or imagine where Reverend Greg Coles is, that there's a beam of light going all the way from this ministry to Reverend Greg Coles, who's in Bay City, Michigan, and on and on and on we could go. You would have this entire country traversed with beams of golden light. That is the legacy of Unity Church of Overland Park, and you are part of that legacy. Every time you serve, you make it possible for us to do what we do. Every single offering that you make, some of you will make a love offering today. Some of you practice the practice of tithing. Some of you give electronically. Do you know that our board just approved a $1.4 million budget for programs next year? All of that comes from you. You in the room here today, the 500 or 600 of you that are here today. So you are creating legacy through this church. And there are other ways that legacy happens. You see, every decision that we make, small or big, is a part of creating legacy. Every single decision that we make. When we come to election time in November, you'll be creating your legacy when you cast your vote, or if you choose not to vote. Legacy gets created in a lot of ways. When you go to the grocery store this afternoon, your purchase decisions are a part of your legacy. When you choose to give anywhere, it's part of your legacy. You see, legacy goes beyond our children. I think so often we think that we're not leaving a legacy. But the truth is, we are all interconnected. And it's part of spiritual intelligence is a term that's used out there now. And part of spiritual intelligence is understanding the interconnectedness of all creation. I mean, where would you and I be today if a couple of dozen folks hadn't come together at the Roadway Inn 37 years ago and said, gee, we think we're going to start a church in Johnson County? You know, if it weren't for them, pardon me, if it weren't for them, where would we be? We are their legacy. You see how that is? And what we're talking about is conscious living, because it is never too soon or too late to begin asking, what kind of legacy are you creating? What kind of legacy do you want to create? You are never too young to consider that question, and you are never too old to consider that question. So I want to give you some ideas of some questions that you might ask to begin honing in on your legacy so that you're part of conscious living and conscious creation. And so the first question that you might want to ask is, what do my family members think of me? What sort of fingerprint am I leaving upon their soul? What is my legacy with my family? You know, whenever I have the honor of officiating a memorial service or a celebration of life service for someone, I always sit with the family and I ask them, what was this person's legacy? How are you different because you knew them, because they knew you? So that's the question you want to ask of yourself. How does your family regard you? What is the legacy that you're leaving with your family? And know that it can change. You can make a choice to change if you'd like to. Second question to ask yourself is, think of your patients, your clients, your customers, your coworkers. What do they think of you? What fingerprint are you leaving in their lives? All the people that you work with, and some of you work at home, some of you work in offices, but how it is that you spend your days is impressing upon others. And how is that? How is that legacy for you? What is the impression that you're making, and what is the impression you would like to make? What is the sweet remembrance that you'd like to have in the minds of the people who are doing business with you? And you know, it can happen in just a moment. It's not always the big actions that leave the legacy. My daughter and I were talking just yesterday. She's in town for a little while here, and she was talking about one of her teachers who said something that was so important to her that she said, I stored that one. I stored that one for good. The teacher said something very encouraging, very inspiring to her and about her. And it's helped her to believe in herself still today. Just one moment. A comment that teacher may not even remember. Probably doesn't. But it's left an indelible fingerprint in the heart of my daughter. So, think about your family and the impact you're making there. Think about your work and the impact that you're making there. Think about your footprint on the earth. What does that footprint look like? You know, last week, I was too busy in the moment to recycle that soda bottle that I had. And I'm still thinking about it. I didn't have time to go empty it out and then put it in the recycle bin, so it just went in the trash. Now, most of the time I recycle, not all the time. And this is not about feeling guilty or not. It's about knowing that every choice, really, every choice that we make leaves a footprint. Is that the footprint that we want to make? So I'm encouraging you today to ask yourself, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered? Not from an ego place, not from a place of, how will they extol my virtues in my memorial service someday? No, but how do you want to be remembered? How do you want the earth, the world, to be differently imprinted because you walked on this earth? It is not too late and it is not too soon to ask that question. When I think about legacy, I also think about Jim Bainey. You know, Jim is a very humble man. He's not one to want me to offer praises for him. But because he just read this poem, I want to tell you that his legacy goes beyond the service that he gave to this country. That may be his greatest legacy. I don't know, but I can tell you some other areas where he's left a legacy. I can tell you that Jim was a leader, an active leader in every Habitat for Humanity project that we had, or in most of them. He would take a week off of work so that he could come and oversee the construction of those homes. Now think of the families that have lived in those homes. Families that otherwise would not have had a house. And for much of Jim's career, what he has done is to build churches. Build churches. Think of the hundreds of thousands of people who have come together to celebrate God, come together to be married, to have their loved ones blessed as they make their transition, to have babies christened. Every one of those people is a legacy for Jim Bainey. You see how that works? I want you to know what a difference you make in this world. Because when you get it, what a difference you make, then you begin to live even more consciously and to make an even greater difference in the world. I began today by talking about Bob Keeler. Well, Bob Keeler is a little closer and more personal to you than you might imagine. You see, Bob Keeler's daughter is Sandy Keeler, a longtime member of this congregation, a longtime volunteer, a prayer chaplain, and on staff as my assistant. And Bob Keeler's granddaughter is Megan Clark. Megan Clark, also an active member of this community, an active volunteer on our screen team, and she used to be my assistant. And Bob Keeler's great-granddaughter is Marnie Clark, my good buddy, a part of our Sunday school program. And Marnie has said that someday she wants to go to a military academy. She was bragging about her great-grandfather the other day to me. And with her hand on her hip, she said, well, let's just put it simply. He risked his life so we could live ours. We've all been blessed by this family, even if you didn't know them personally. So it is that Bob Keeler's legacy lives on in this room. Everyone makes a difference. And you are making a difference.
We are all joined together in our hearts, in our minds, and in our souls. We are part of something greater, part of something greater than any one of us could ever be.
And you are part of something greater. We all are. This great country of ours, we are here today with debts of gratitude to so many. You are a part of something greater, and every action that you take makes an imprint upon this world, makes a fingerprint upon the soul of this universe. There's a description of legacy that I think is perhaps the best I've ever read. It was written by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He writes, "To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a little bit better. Whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you lived. This is to have succeeded."
We are all joined together in our hearts, in our minds, and in our souls. We are part of something greater, something so much greater than any one of us could ever be.
And you are part of something greater, and you are making a legacy that is a blessing to this world. Think about it. Think about it. What is your legacy?